Posted by user More Than From No Fall, Dark Sun one-shot ruined within 5 minutes. TWSA. Medium, not safe for work. In 2005, I was graduating college, and we had senior week after final exams, when all the seniors remained in town and on campus if they wanted to party. I decided to run a Dark Sun one-shot for my friends, my 4 female roommates and 2 guys we had known throughout our 4 years there. Only myself and 1 other girl had ever played before, but everyone was excited. I met with each player individually to work out their characters. It was 2nd edition, so no individual session zeros would have been extra cruel. Prepared comprehensive campaign notes, 30 pages with several maps, and it seemed like it would be really cool. We open in the Gladiator slave pens, Dark Sun equivalent of a tavern from starting scenes, on the night of their planned escape, and they encounter a new slave girl who had just been brought in that day. Before anyone else can even speak, one of the guys deadass says, "I rape her." I'm like, what? Dude repeats himself, "Why?" Everyone at the table is completely horrified. He comes back with, "I'm evil." So I just have a random lightning bolt strike his character dead, even though they were underground, and, ask him to go. He does, but the game was already completely ruined. I better never have a worse horror story. We weren't even drunk yet. Okay, yeah, that is a definite bad sign. I think we all know how I feel about, characters and just shoving in rape. Definitely not okay with any of that at all. The DM could have handled it slightly better by just, stopping right there. Although then again, I'm not too against having the wrath of Zeus being struck upon them. Although then again, I think Zeus has a bit of hypocrisy to work out on that end as well. Why hello, lovely travelers and seekers of tales of amusement and entertainment. It is I, the Lunar Skald, here to regale you with fanciful stories that will meet all of your curiosities. Now, before we get into this story, I want to first apologize for the absolutely long delay between this video and the last video. And I mean, it really has been a long while. It's just kind of been, well, very hectic and busy trying to keep up with the not only full-time job that I am currently working at, but also sort of the part-time job working as sort of an actor, and then also another sort of job where I'm actually DMing a campaign, and so far, if you're actually interested in hearing about it, it's been going pretty well so far. It's been a lot of fun being able to make a campaign for some of my community members. I think this week I'm going to be taking a break from that so that I could get back into being a player a little bit, but it's definitely been quite the adjustment. Not to mention a few car troubles and having to run errands here and there because, me and my mom are now sort of sharing a car. Again, because of car troubles. So, there's that going on as well. So, yeah, it's been quite hectic and quite busy. So, that's basically my explanation for why I haven't really been making a video for a while, because after all of that, I'm just really tired from being able to make videos and then editing them. So, it's been a bit of a hassle. I mean, luckily I've been able to focus a bit more on my other channel where my videos aren't necessarily as tiresome because they're gameplay videos and they aren't really much to edit, so there's that. If you want to check out that channel, it is the Night Queen, so I will be willing to show that channel if you are interested. But for now, let's just go ahead and get past that and get on to our tale. This was posted by user DareProfessional2186. Long. Player gets upset because I kill his irredeemable character, then throws a fit. So I'm gonna kind of pause here for a moment because there is definitely a right way with dealing with a problem player and a wrong way with dealing with a problem player. I don't necessarily know how the OP is going to be going about this, but every now and then we have come across the DM who's just like, oh no, your character died because blah blah blah. Now, there are times where it's justifiable because the character has done something incomprehensible, and realistically, like, say they kill somebody in front of the guards, the DM kind of has no choice but to throw the guards at the player who decided to murder somebody in front of the guards. Now, that is a reasonable way of handling a problem player, but we've also come across stories where the DM is just like, oh no, I don't like what you did, so therefore, random meteor from the gods kills you and you're dead. That is the absolute wrong way of handling it, but let's go ahead and at least see what happened in this story. Content warning, some fucked up themes. Proceed at your own caution. Bit of a background on this one. Some time ago, I was hired by a group of people to DM Tyranny of the Dragons for them. The group is relatively new to D&D and not too keen on role-playing, but other than that, they were okay, but they were 2 wizards, a ranger, and a cleric. Sorry, I didn't mean to say but. For a while now, some members of the group have been doing in-character things that often put them at odds with some NPCs who are their allies, which in and of itself is fine, but it's really weird when they act surprised when some NPCs start being rude to them back. For example, they threatened to shoot an NPC companion because they decided to leave after the party killed some, albeit rude, otherwise non-hostile kobolds. This all comes to a head during our most recent session, where the party faces off against Langdradosa, or however that's pronounced, the half-dragon in the middle of the cave. The fight goes about how I expected it to go, and half the party gets laid out immediately, even though they have 2 other NPC companions. By chance of fate, the party gets the upper hand, and the ranger deals the killing blow on Langdradosa, with one party member unconscious and another one dead. Then, the ranger player does something that caught me by surprise, essentially saying that his character proceeds to Langdradosa's dead body. Okay, yeah, I see where the caution was meant for. Already, okay. At first, I didn't quite know how to react because this was the first time anyone had ever done this in one of my sessions. Because of the fact that this was a paid session, I didn't stop the session there, even though I maybe should have. I asked the player if he was 100% positively sure he wanted to do this. He said yes. I decide to not describe the scene and carry on, saying that the 2 NPC companions ditched the party immediately when this started happening. Obviously, there were going to be consequences for this, we will get to that later. The party decided to cut their losses and return to town. When they found out the 2 NPCs had told the governor of what they've seen, this puts into motion a small questioning where a cleric who specializes in divination magic casts Zone of Truth to get to the bottom of these allegations. When the truth comes out and the character was getting arrested, I was still holding out hope that there will still be a chance of redemption for this character. But that was dashed when the player said that the character was planning on breaking out of prison and raping and killing the governor. We proceeded to have a segment where his character finds out the other inmates were Cult of the Dragon members who recognizes him. The ranger tried to convince them to side with him to break out, but when told, "Sounds to me like you're trying to save your own skin," decides it's a good idea to begin a fistfight with them. The cultist then proceeds to shank him to death, and that's the end of the character. The player got upset and left the call, only to later on send me a message where he calls me an unprofessional for killing his character, just because he made me feel uncomfortable, and says the bit of the necrophilia was just a joke. I told him that I was really uncomfortable, but also that his character's fate was the result of his actions. He apparently didn't like this and continued to throw a fit in the messages, at which point I block him and kick him from the server. The last thing happened recently. One of the other players, one of the wizards, messaged me saying that I was narcissistic for making the call to kick the other player without telling them, and tried to argue that I didn't specify that we need to be mindful of the DM's personal integrity and how he feels. I guess expecting people to be decent humans is too much. I said that they're not paying enough to ignore my own stance on the matter, and that in this situation I reserve the right to refuse service to his friend. The wizard player left the server after saying they will request a refund. Part of me thinks that I could have handled the situation better, and yet another strongly feels like I did my best with what I had. What would you all have done in this position? Am I in the wrong for this? Edit. I should point out one of the players, the cleric, seemed to also share in the sentiment that the ranger player crossed the line, so I was not the only one that was upset by the course of events. Edit 2. Wow, didn't expect this to get so much feedback. People seem to think that we didn't have a session 0 when we tried to establish boundaries. We did, and while I never gave any specific examples, I did say that besides killing, I don't like getting into too dark of a subject matter. I guess that's on me for setting this bar too low. Regarding why I didn't stop it right there and then, if I may excuse my actions for a moment here in my mind, I believe that if I was to stop it there would be a long-ass back and forward between them and I, where they would be like, we're paying you for this. We should be able to do whatever we want. And I wanted to avoid that as it would drag the session more than what it was already. I guess I expect people to understand that when they play in my games, they are playing in a world that reacts to their actions, and to put it some way, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I don't know if I'm gonna continue to DM for the rest of the players, but I guess now I'll have to be extra specific on what's okay and what's not okay. Okay, and yes, the DM, wow. Okay, I know I say that a lot for a lot of these stories, but they just definitely leave a lot of sour tastes in the mouth. So yes, rape. I don't know who needs to hear this, but apparently according to the stories that I've been reading, it is not okay. That should always be a no. And then the necrophilia. That's even worse. No matter who it is, that's just horrifying. Like, how does it need to be said so much when it happens this often? Does nobody get the idea that that's just bad? Does nobody get the idea that that's horrifying? I mean, just wow. Just wow. I mean, yeah, there's not really much to say it. This was bad. And it is definitely complicated in some ways because this is a paid game, and you can definitely expect some players when they are doing a paid game to feel entitled to do whatever they want. But at the same time, just because you are providing a service doesn't mean there isn't a line to be drawn. The customer is not always right, and people need to understand that, no matter how entitled they feel. So, you did set your boundaries, they just decided to cross it. And basically, how it works is that you basically made a non-written contract, and they broke it. So when they have broken that contract, you no longer have to obligate yourself to what it is that they are doing. You have set the boundaries, they decide to break it. Simple as that. If they want a refund, fine. That's simply just how it is. But yeah, there's really not much to be said. And to be fair, the DM did handle this properly, because they didn't just randomly kill the player ended up killing themselves because they decided to throw a fight with a bunch of cultists, and they died because of that. They didn't die because of some random bullshit. They died because of the consequences of their actions, just the way it should be. So, with that, I think this is pretty simple to say that the OP definitely handled things correctly, and they didn't just randomly kill the other player, as satisfying as that probably would have been. But it was satisfying enough to know that this player did die as a consequence of their own actions. But I hope we did learn a valuable lesson with this story, and that hopefully you enjoyed it, or at least enjoyed the ending result where it simply just ended and, the problem player just died. And with that, I will leave you all here with this story, and I hope that if you want to see more content like this, you will subscribe to this channel. Be sure to click a like button if you did enjoy this story, and if you want to see more stories like this. And until next time, may the Lunar embrace you well as you rest this night. Farewell.